There is no reason to buy a Honda Rebel 300, unless you're the person responsible for acquiring the entire fleet of motorcycles that's going to be used by the MSF's Basic Rider course. The Rebel 300 exists to be a bike that can be ridden by someone with absolutely zero motorcycle riding experience. So, in its very nature, it's a bike that you'll outgrow in not just a year, but basically a month. There are certainly outright worse motorcycles in the world, of course. The Rebel 300 is a well-built machine. It's a Honda after all, but it's really designed to be used as a training tool, running exercises in parking lots, more than it is a bike that a new rider can grow into and enjoy for multiple riding seasons. The Rebel 300 uses a liquid-cooled 286cc single cylinder that's making 25 ponies and 18 foot-pounds of torque. Compared to the vast majority of beginner motorcycles these days, that is pretty far down on displacement and power, at least for the North American market. I mean, the Rebel 300 can probably muster enough energy to get to over 80 miles an hour, but it's going to be pretty out of breath at that point. If you do want to see its top speed, I recommend throwing it out of an airplane. You don't want to be maxed out for power just to keep up with traffic on the expressway. That will make it a bit difficult, if not impossible, to pass other vehicles when you need to. Because the Rebel 300 is using such a small engine, it will be very noticeably impacted by hills, wind, and cargo weight. You know, your bike's a bit too small when carrying a backpack noticeably reduces your motorcycle's performance. One of the appeals of the Rebel 300 is its super approachable low seat height, but there are plenty of other cruisers available for just as easy short guys to ride it and flat-foot it that will hold your attention for much longer. The Rebel 500 being a perfect example. In all honesty, I don't understand why you'd buy a 300 versus a 500 Rebel when they're both readily available. I completely understand that in certain parts of the world, the Royal Enfield Meteor 350 is a perfect motorcycle. I've been to India twice, trust me. But here in the US, it just isn't. I'm sorry. The Meteor 350 uses a 349cc air-cooled single cylinder that produces just 20 horsepower and 20 foot-pounds of torque. Sure, this little donkey has some grunt if you're putting around town, but sooner or later, you're gonna want to go further than just around town. Even if you don't intend on riding on the highway, there's plenty of roads where going 65 miles an hour is pretty common, and a 420-pound motorcycle with just 20 horsepower is gonna be gasping for air as you near 70. Even if you're not concerned with top speed, the Meteor takes over 10 seconds to reach 60 miles an hour. You're gonna have every economy car on the road riding your butt every time you leave a stoplight. I understand it's a cruiser, not everyone rides for outright performance, but the Meteor 350 borders on being a bit unsafe to ride on American roads given its sluggish nature. And there are plenty of cruisers on the market that are comfortable to ride and have a more relaxed posture that aren't going to be as limiting as the Meteor 350. Even Royal Enfield's own 650 range, like the INT 650 or Continental GT, are appropriate for beginners in both their power output and their asking price. So for most US riders, the Meteor 350 is just not going to cut it for very long, and you'll probably outgrow it in less than a year. Starting out your riding journey on a dual sport can be tons of fun. A dual sport can allow you to try your hand at multiple riding disciplines with just one machine. You can ride around town, hit some light gravel trails, you can strap a milk crate to the back of the bike and turn it into an apocalypse touring machine, you can learn wheelies and slide it around on dirt. They're a ton of fun. But with the proliferation of very capable and fun dual sport on the market, the KLX230 is a bit of a hard sell. The KLX230 is less than $500 cheaper than the KLX300, yet it falls very short in many different ways. It uses a 233cc air-cooled single cylinder that makes just 17 horsepower and 13 foot-pounds of torque, yet it still weighs 290 pounds. Being a small air-cooled thumper, it's definitely not going to manage speeds higher than 65 miles an hour, and also aerodynamically speaking, it's not going to go very fast at all. I understand that's not why people buy little dual sports. People buy them as farm bikes, training bikes, all that stuff, but its lack of power will limit even its off-road capability as well. It's a fine bike to get you riding and to get started, but with what you're going to spend, there are other larger dual sport bikes you can buy for similar price that will provide you lasting enjoyment for longer. Because no matter how you want to use the KLX230, whether it be for bopping around town, commuting, or off-road use, you're quickly going to realize you're limited by its power and low-spec suspension components, and you're probably just better off getting the KLX300. The Duke 390 has been a beloved beginner-friendly naked bike for nearly 10 years in production. Recently updated, it's a pretty sweet ride. The KTM has also sold the Duke 200 in India with much success, and then decided to sell the 200 in the US. And that was kind of a flop, but then they since updated to the Duke 250, but Again, when the Duke 390 exists, there's really no reason an American rider is gonna get a Duke 250 unless it's massively discounted, which is something KTM is doing right now. This bike uses a 249cc single-cylinder motor that's good for 30 horsepower and 18 foot-pounds of torque. These numbers are the highest we've seen on the list today, but it's still gonna feel like a glorified moped after you get up to speed with your riding skills within 6 months to a year. The only reason I could see someone gravitating towards a Duke 250 as opposed to 390 is because of price, as I mentioned. But if you're willing to pay $4,600 before tax and fees for a Duke 250, you'd be much better off spending that money on any used 400 class bike. I mean, you could very likely even find a used Duke 390 for that price, so I don't really see the point in a 250 at all here in the States. Even when you research this bike, all the information that comes up is from Indian owners, which makes sense. That's a popular bike in that market, and it seems to be a popular seller. And it looks like KTM is just trying to double dip and sell in American markets as well as the ultra affordable Duke option. But you get what you pay for, and you might as well just pony up a little bit more and get a 390 or any used Japanese bike. So this next entry is a little different, and it's not just one bike that you'll outgrow in less than a year of riding, it's a whole category, and that's project bikes. I've seen so many young riders go down this route. They pick up someone's half-finished cafe racer project on Facebook Marketplace, and they're convinced that because of their intensive forum research, they're capable of getting it in running order in no time without exhausting too much energy or money. If this is the approach you're looking to take to get into motorcycling, let me tell you, this is never a good idea. The project you buy is never going to be an easy fix. I've bought so many motorcycles, a lot of clapped out stuff. I recently bought a Gixxer 600 that was in pretty good condition, and I'm still having issues with it. If it were that easy, the previous owner would have already fixed it and sold it for twice as much as they're asking. It doesn't matter if the project bike comes with a box full of parts and the previous owner swears up and down that everything you need to get it running and riding is in there. It is never that easy. Even if you're skilled enough to get a project bike fully running properly, it's going to continue to give you problems over time. The carbs will need to get rebuilt, or the injectors will get clogged, or the fuel pump will fail, or the wiring will short out and leave you stranded somewhere. Then eventually, you'll realize the project bike is simply not worth it due to all the time, energy, and money you've put into it, and you'll just ditch it in favor of an SV650 or something. Save the project bike for when you already have a fully functional motorcycle, because learning to ride and learning to wrench are two very different things. And if you're interested in actually riding, the allure of a project bike is going to fade very quickly. And isn't it a lot more fun to have a bike that runs and rides every time you swing a leg over it, and then you can come back to the garage and work on your project and fiddle with it and not really be too fussed about it if it doesn't run for the next weekend. Now, if you want a motorcycle that you're not going to outgrow very quickly, our next giveaway bike on Yamity.co might just be your bag. We're going to be doing a Honda CBR 650R with the new e-clutch system. Don't tell anybody I told you in this video. If you become a member right now, you'll already get your entries locked and loaded, ready to win that motorcycle, and you'll be helping support the show, and you'll join on Discord as well. We're one of the largest independent motorcycle media channels on YouTube. We have no corporate sponsors. It's just me and a small group of enthusiasts who just really love motorcycling and making the best content possible. And on top of that, we don't advertise our giveaways anywhere. We only talk about them here on YouTube. So if you're watching it here, you're one of the lucky few that actually have a chance to win. So head over to the website, become a member today, or pick up a hat, a t-shirt, a hoodie, and support the show. And you're going to get entered to win our new Honda CBR 650R with the e-clutch that we're launching in just a week. But remember, don't tell anybody I told you. Sometimes there's nothing wrong with outgrowing a bike quickly. That just means you're learning, and that's a good thing, and you're evolving. But because you'll eventually outgrow your first bike, usually no matter what, that's why it's usually savvy to buy a super inexpensive yet functional motorcycle for the deliberate purpose of outgrowing it. For example, I give you the Ninja 250R. The Ninja 250 is Kawasaki's long-running entry-level sport bike that predated the introduction of the Ninja 300 in 2012. This is your quintessential 90s to 2000s beginner sport bike before they were jam-packed full of features and tech. It's literally meant to just get you safely riding, and that's it. It uses a 249cc parallel twin that makes a respectable 32 horsepower and 15 foot-pounds of torque. The baby Ninja has a claimed top speed of 110 miles an hour, so due to the high revving nature of the engine, should be one of the more highway-capable bikes on the list today. Also, the more aerodynamic fairings and lower stance also get you to go a little bit faster too. The Ninja 250 is super confidence inspiring and easy to get along with just the 30.5-inch seat height and a 375-pound curb weight. Yeah, you're gonna outgrow this bike pretty quickly, sooner than the Ninja 400 or 500 that are more commonplace, but these bikes are super cheap and run forever. You can buy a Ninja 250R for like $2,500 tops and then ride it for a year and then sell it for $2,500 next spring. It's not always a bad thing to outgrow your bikes, just as long as you're not taking a big financial hit on it. I've seen really clean examples of Ninja 250s come up for sale for like $1,800, so I don't want to hear it in the comments how your used motorcycles in your marketplace are all $8,000. It's simply not true. You gotta find the deals, baby. The last bike on the list today is the Royal Enfield Himalayan 411. The old one. On the surface, this is a neat little bike. It is somewhat refreshing to see a simple, stripped-down bike that proves not every adventure bike needs to be laden with premium tech freckles, gadgets, and gizmos, but unfortunately, the Himalayan falls short in a lot of ways. It uses an air-cooled 410cc single that makes 24 horsepower and 24 foot-pounds of torque. Similarly to the Duke 250 or the Meteor 350, I think the Himalayan 411, the original one, just isn't a bike that is really designed to succeed in the American market. While it fares pretty decently on rough, uneven, mountainous Indian roads where speed is of no concern, roads that I actually rode on with the 450 launch a few years ago, but it's just outgunned here in the States by many better performing small displacement adventure bikes. I mean, come on, a CRF 300L Rally? Just a CRF 300L dual sport in general. 24 horsepower is just not that much power to move this 400-pound machine very easily, especially if it's loaded up with adventure gear. A lot of the appeal of an adventure bike is the ability to tackle varying terrain, from dirt roads to highways, so the Himalayan 411 really only works well in half of these scenarios. The loping engine doesn't inspire much confidence at highway speeds on the pavement, and neither does the 21-inch front wheel. And the lackluster brakes and lack of switchable ABS doesn't bode well for dirt riding either. Royal Enfield themselves recognize the shortcomings in the 411 and have since launched the Himalayan 450, which is a way more compelling package amongst the ever-growing and highly competitive entry-level segment of adventure bikes. Again, tested that bike in India myself. It's a sweet ride. I'd recommend that one for sure. Thanks for making it all the way to the end today, folks. Don't worry, I'll be back soon with a list of bikes you won't outgrow, so stay posted for that later. Also, it's always worth mentioning riding any bike is better than no bike. I just want to make sure you guys have the best experience getting on two wheels, so you don't feel like you got burned and give up riding before finding the bike that really scratches the itch. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to subscribe. We post daily motorcycle content, and with the riding season upon us, we've got some super exciting stuff in the pipeline you're not going to want to miss. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you later. Fact: the Millau Viaduct in France is so tall that its pylons are slightly farther apart at the top than at the bottom to account for the curvature of the Earth. Goodbye.
Keep watching Yami Noob.